Throwaway because I'm in Reddit circles where I don't talk about my child ever, plus for both our privacy. As far as I know, C doesn't use Reddit apart from those robot-voiced YouTube videos. But if you do see this, I'm sorry. I love you. I just don't know who to talk to about this. As you can tell from the ages, I had my child C, non-binary they, them, very young. I've been a single mom their entire life, and while I've never let them know how hard it really was when they were little, they're definitely aware that it was a bad situation that I didn't want for them when they grew up. I know that I am a success story because I was able to go to university and build a comfortable life for us, but I didn't try to glamorize it because I wanted C to have a life of their own before taking care of another one. When they were a young teenager, I really preached safe intimacy, telling them, you have a uterus, you can get pregnant. If you're going to do it, please just be safe. We are incredibly close, and there's very little we don't share with each other. I keep more to myself as the parent, obviously. C has always confided in me if something was wrong, or even if they just wanted to talk. As soon as they started struggling with their identity, they came and told me, and I was just so happy that they knew they could trust me with it. I've been there through all their school struggles. I know all their friends. I met their significant others. This is a long way of saying that there's no reason for them to hide this from me, and I don't know why they haven't told me. I've had thoughts that C could be pregnant on and off for a couple of months, but it only really hit me in the past few weeks that I could be right. The only early sign I can think of was what we thought was a really bad food poisoning in September. They were actually hospitalized for dehydration, but we had a takeaway the night before, and C's had been a bit questionable. As far as I'm aware, they weren't sick after that. I started questioning it properly when I noticed that we weren't running out of menstrual products as quickly, but I thought they were probably using the ones at their 6th form since they're spending so much time there prepping for exams. I finally had the realization about a week ago. C is an oversized jumper person, but we were going somewhere nice for my birthday, so they were wearing a dress, and I thought their tummy looked a bit bigger. I didn't say anything because I don't want to spark eating disorder behavior. Also, we're both quite thin, but maybe they gained weight, and they just carry it differently. I think a few days later they were playing on the floor with the cats, and their top rode up, and my heart just plummeted when I saw a definite bump and the line you get on your tummy when you're pregnant. If they noticed that I noticed, they haven't acted any differently since then. The only way I can describe it is that I felt my heart sink. Not even because they're probably pregnant, but because they didn't tell me. I will support them no matter what. It might be too late to terminate, but if they want to keep the baby or give it up, I'll be there for them. I just can't think why they wouldn't come to me. Is it somehow possible that they don't even know? What if they're somehow not pregnant and I just wreck our relationship by asking them? I don't know what to do. I just want them and the baby to be safe and get the right care, and for them to know I love them. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. We talked about birth control. They tried the pill for something completely separate as a teenager, but couldn't cope with the side effects. Also, we both have ADHD and struggle with remembering meds. I told them about condoms and Plan B, and I think they decided on the implant but didn't have it yet. They haven't been yet. Over here, you don't really start going until your early 20s unless you have a problem, so I'm not sure how I could convince them to go. Comment 2. You could bring it up in the context of the menstrual products not being used. You told them to be safe if they have intimacy, but have you discussed actual birth control? Do they go to the gynecologist at all yet? If they're sexually active, they should. Maybe it would be a good idea to make an appointment. Even if they aren't comfortable with you going in with them, they can at least talk to the doctor about the possible pregnancy. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support on my last post. It's been a busy couple of weeks, and I've got a lot to share. So, after I noticed the bump on C's tummy, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was up. I decided to wait for a natural moment to bring it up, rather than just confronting them out of the blue. That moment came sooner than expected. C had always been the type to dive into their studies, especially with exams coming up. But lately, they'd been even more withdrawn, spending long hours holed up in their room. I knew they were stressed, but I also knew my kid, and this was different. It was like they were carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. One evening, I was making dinner, and C came into the kitchen. They looked exhausted, and I could tell they'd been crying. My heart ached for them. I asked if they wanted to talk, and after a long pause, they just broke down. Turns out, C had been seeing someone from their 6th form, someone I hadn't met. They'd been careful, they said, but one thing led to another, and C found themselves pregnant. They were terrified of disappointing me, of repeating my history. They didn't want to burden me with the news, especially since I'd worked so hard to give us a good life. I hugged them tight, right there in the kitchen, and assured them that nothing could ever make me love them less. We talked for hours that night about options, about fears, and about how we could face this together. The next step was a doctor's appointment. C was indeed pregnant and pretty far along. The doctor was kind, explaining everything we needed to know. C decided to keep the baby, and I promised to support them every step of the way. We started preparing for the baby's arrival, turning the spare room into a nursery. C's partner, the one I hadn't met, came over to talk. It was awkward at first, but I could see they genuinely cared for C and were just as scared. We all agreed to work together for the baby's sake. The days flew by and C's bump grew. They were still attending school, determined to finish their exams. Their teachers were supportive, offering extra help where needed. It was tough, but C was tougher. Then one night, C's water broke. It was earlier than expected, and a rush of panic set in. We hurried to the hospital, C's partner meeting us there. The labor was intense, and I was right by C's side the whole time. After what felt like an eternity, the baby was born, a beautiful, healthy little one that C decided to name Alex. C was a natural, caring for Alex with such tenderness. I was proud, not just of C, but of myself too. We'd come through so much together, and here we were, starting a new chapter. C's partner started spending more time with us, helping with Alex and supporting C. It wasn't easy, but we were making it work, one day at a time. As for me, I found strength I didn't know I had. I was a grandmother now, and I was determined to give Alex the same love and support I'd given C. C's exams came and went, and despite everything, they did well. They were making plans for the future, considering universities that had good childcare facilities. It wasn't the path we'd imagined, but it was a path filled with love and hope. And now as I watch C with Alex, I'm filled with a sense of peace. We've faced surprises and confrontations, but we've come out stronger. C is an amazing parent, and I'm here for them, just like I always promised. Boyfriend agrees not to release inside me for 10 days, but then he does this. Oh boy, he'll regret it. I got an IUD 2 months ago, and my boyfriend and I have been having a lot of unprotected intimacy, most of which resulted in him releasing inside me. About 4 days ago, I told him that I didn't want him to release inside me for at least 10 days because I wanted my pH level to reset. He said okay, and for the next 2 times we had intimacy, he pulled out. Today we came back from a road trip in which he was driving the whole time and was understandably tired. We also had a conflict during the trip and we were both feeling tense. Since we got home, we talked it out and resolved things. Then before bed, we had intimacy and he released inside me without asking if he could. After intimacy, we lay in bed for a couple of minutes. I was confused and didn't know how to feel. Then I asked him why he did that and he asked me if I was annoyed. I said no. I just want to know why. He said he wanted to feel intimate, then told me to go to bed and rolled over with his back facing me. I asked him why he didn't say anything about this until I brought it up. He muttered because I said I wasn't annoyed. I said I wasn't, but I was confused about why he didn't apologize or say anything at all and just rolled over, signifying he was going to bed. He mumbled, "That's because he's tired and what the issue is." I said I am confused because we had agreed that he wouldn't release inside me for 10 days. So I thought that it was common sense that if he was going to do it before then, he would at the very least ask me, or at the very least apologize afterwards and ask me if it was okay. He said that he didn't know it had to be exactly 10 days. He thought it had been 7 days. And that if I want him to say sorry, he will say sorry. I said it hasn't even been 7 days and that I don't want him to say sorry just because I told him to. And he unenthusiastically mumbled, "Okay, sorry then," while still having his back turned toward me. I then told him that if he had forgotten in the moment about our agreement or just made a mistake, I would have been understanding. But the fact that he didn't think to bring it up after the fact, and seemed aloof and uncaring when I brought it up, makes me feel violated. I told him I feel violated and went to take a shower. When I came back after 10 minutes, he didn't speak and just went to sleep. I understand for a fact that he is really tired, physically and emotionally, and I understand that because we had an argument earlier, he wanted make-up intimacy to feel more intimate. But I don't know if that warrants his actions and his attitude in response after the fact. Thoughts? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. My hurtful ex started this way. Leave them when they start to ignore and disrespect your boundaries. Don't stick around for it to get worse, because it will. He knew what you were okay with. He verbally confirmed it with you. Then he decided he didn't care because of what he wanted from your body. When you confronted him, he did not apologize, did not acknowledge it was wrong. He dismissed you and rolled over. Absolutely unacceptable. I would never be able to trust or feel safe with this person again. Trash. Comment 2. You feel confused and violated because your partner, the person that is supposed to love and care for you before anyone else, trampled all over your boundaries. He did it after an argument, which could indicate that he was trying to get payback. He did not seem bothered by it, and he did not apologize or seem to care. And above all that, he trampled your boundaries on intimacy. This is not a safe person to be in a relationship with, OP. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post, and I need to get this off my chest. So, after that night when my boyfriend released inside me without asking, things got really tense. We've been together for almost 2 years now, and I thought we had good communication. But it felt like a betrayal, especially since I had been so clear about needing that 10-day break for my pH levels to reset. The next morning, he acted like nothing happened. He made breakfast, his famous scrambled eggs that he learned to perfect after burning them on our 3rd date. I couldn't even look at him. I just kept thinking about how he ignored what I asked for, how he just rolled over and went to sleep. I decided to confront him again. I needed to know if this was just a mistake or if he really didn't respect my wishes. When I brought it up, he got defensive. He said he thought I was making a big deal out of nothing. That hurt. It wasn't nothing to me. It was about trust. We had a huge fight. He brought up old issues like the time I forgot his birthday last year, which I thought we had moved past. I reminded him of the time he promised to stop smoking, but I caught him with a pack of cigarettes a month later. It was like we were throwing our history at each other, trying to see who could hurt the other more. In the middle of our argument, his phone rang. It was his ex, the one he dated before me. The one he always said was crazy and too clingy. I couldn't believe he was still in touch with her. He said it was nothing, that she just needed advice on a car issue because he used to help her with that stuff. But why now? Why during our fight? I stormed out. I needed space. I went to my best friend's house, the one who had warned me about getting too serious with him after only 6 months of dating. She always said he had a way of avoiding responsibility. I guess she was right. I stayed there for 2 days, ignoring his texts and calls. I was so angry I couldn't even cry. But then on the 3rd day, I went back home. I missed him, despite everything. I thought maybe we could talk it out, fix things. When I walked in, he was sitting on the couch looking miserable. He said he was sorry, that he messed up. He told me he had been feeling insecure about us, especially after our road trip fight. He said he wanted to feel close to me and made a stupid decision in the heat of the moment. I wanted to believe him, to forgive him. But then he dropped a bombshell. He admitted that he had been talking to his ex more than he let on, that they had been texting for weeks. He said it was just as friends, but how could I trust him now? I felt like my heart had been ripped out. All this time, While we were being intimate, while I was trusting him with my body, he was reaching out to someone else. It wasn't just about the intimacy anymore. It was about the lies, the secrets. We're still together, but it's different now. There's this distance between us that wasn't there before. I keep thinking about what else he might be hiding, what else he might do without considering my feelings. I don't know what to do. I love him, but can love be enough when the trust is shattered? I keep replaying our past, trying to see if there were signs I missed, like the time he got jealous when I was talking to a male coworker at a party, or how he always had a reason not to meet my parents. Hubby wants me to send him nudes every day, but when I confront him, he tells me he had dinner with an old flame. Our son has ADHD, and I'm pregnant again. We go to couples therapy, and he has a health scare background info. My husband, 38-year-old male, and I, 31-year-old female, have been together for close to 12 years, married for 6. He is German, and I'm American, and I moved to live with him in Germany. We have 2 kids together, 8-year-old male, 5-year-old female. I have been diagnosed with depression and an eating disorder in the past, and most recently, ADHD. I was in a not-so-good place mentally when we met, and I was drawn to his confidence and charismatic nature. Since my ADHD diagnosis a year ago, I've made leaps and bounds in my own self-confidence and have been actively working on unlearning bad coping mechanisms and being more direct when communicating. My husband has a much higher libido than I do. When asked directly about how often he'd ideally like to have intimacy, his reply was twice a day. If you plotted my libido on a graph, the line would look like a roller coaster. I've had periods when I wanted a lot of intimacy, thanks pregnancy hormones, and others in which the thought of intimacy was enough to make me feel sick. Right now, we're having intimacy anywhere from 1 to 5 times a week. This is often a topic we end up fighting over, as I often feel coerced into having intimacy when I don't want to, and he feels I don't care about his wants, needs. Even if we tried to have intimacy twice a day, that wouldn't work. He often goes to visit friends in the evening and often won't come back until 11:30 or midnight, at which point I'm already sleeping. I get up with the kids every morning. The problem: since Monday, my husband's been in another city working. He's an artist and travels to other studios once a month for 5 to 6 days and won't be back until Friday or Saturday. We talked on the phone Monday evening after he arrived at his friend's house where he's staying and said at some point in the conversation, "Don't forget to send me nudes this week." This comment left a sour taste in my mouth as I'm currently writing my master's thesis. Deadline is mid-end of March, taking care of our kids by myself. Our oldest has ADHD as well, which brings additional struggles to our everyday life. Doing as much housework as I can and trying to juggle the entire mental load as I usually do. This morning I saw I had a text from him from last night that read, "Good night, my name, and don't forget. I asked and waited during the USA trip. I was asking and waiting during the German city trip, and I was asking and waiting during the where he's at now trip right now and never got a single thing. Don't let me wait 3 times in a row, please." I feel absolutely exasperated. By the end of the day, I'm overstimulated from trying to keep the kids from fighting and getting them fed and in bed. My head is full of appointments, reminders, and microbiology stuff, and I don't even have the energy left to do anything for me, let alone set up a sexy photo shoot. It feels like another thing to add to the to-do list. And not only does my mind forget about it with everything else going on, but when I do actually remember his request, I don't want to do it because of the way it makes me feel. Meanwhile, he's off somewhere else, able to work uninterrupted and with no time constraints like picking kids up from daycare. He told me to send nudes when I was visiting family in the US alone with our kids. This feels so entitled, disrespectful, and inappropriate. I have no clue what to do next. Part of me thinks I should just do it tonight so he stops pestering me and so he doesn't get angry at me when he comes home. But a bigger part of me knows that I don't exist solely for his pleasure, and I shouldn't make myself feel bad or stressed just to make him feel good. I've been thinking about this the whole day and feel sick to my stomach. How can I navigate this without compromising my feelings and well-being? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Every time he asks for nudes, send him a picture of one of these things. Kids fighting, kids eating, kids getting ready for bed, appointment calendar, reminder calendar, microbiology stuff. Comment 2. Your husband is being coercive. This is really not okay. Feel free to say no to these requests. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. It's been a busy couple of weeks, and I've got quite the update for you all. So after I posted last time, things just kept spiraling. My husband kept pressing for those photos, and I was at my wit's end. I decided to confront him about it when he got back from his trip. I was nervous, but I knew it had to be done. The day he returned, I sat him down and laid it all out. I told him how his requests made me feel disrespected and objectified. I reminded him of the mental load I carry every day, managing the kids, the house, and my studies. I was shaking, but I stood my ground. He was taken aback. I could see it in his eyes. He hadn't realized the impact of his words or how they compounded the stress I was already under. He apologized, and for a moment, I thought we'd turned a corner, but old habits die hard. The next week, he was back to his usual self, staying out late with friends and leaving me to manage everything at home. It was like our conversation had never happened. Then came the bombshell. I was doing laundry and found a receipt in his pocket from a fancy restaurant in the city he'd been working in. The date was during his trip, and it was for 2. My heart sank. I confronted him, and after some evasion, he admitted he'd had dinner with an old flame. He insisted it was just as friends, but I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I was devastated. I thought about our history, how he'd been there for me during my darkest times, helping me through my depression and eating disorder. How could he be so thoughtless now? In the midst of this chaos, our son's ADHD became more challenging to manage. He was having trouble at school, and I was stretched thin trying to support him. My husband, to his credit, stepped up. He started taking our son to therapy sessions and really engaging with his needs. It was a side of him I hadn't seen in a while, and it gave me a glimmer of hope, but the trust between us was fractured. I couldn't look at him without thinking of that receipt. We were like 2 strangers living under the same roof, co-parenting but not connecting. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, I found out I was pregnant. It was a shock. We hadn't planned for another child, and with everything going on, the timing couldn't have been worse. I broke the news to my husband, and the reaction was mixed. He was happy about the baby, but could see the worry in my eyes. We both knew this would add another layer of complexity to our already strained relationship. We started going to couples therapy, trying to work through our issues. It was hard, opening up about our feelings and confronting the problems we'd been avoiding. But we were making progress, slowly. And then, just last week, my husband had a health scare. He collapsed at his studio and was rushed to the hospital. It turned out to be a minor heart issue, nothing life-threatening, but it was a wake-up call for both of us. Sitting by his hospital bed, holding his hand, I realized how much we'd been through together. Despite the hurt and the mistrust, there was still love there. We talked more openly than we had in months, and it felt like we were finally hearing each other. He's back home now, and we're taking things one day at a time. The pregnancy is progressing well, and we're both trying to be more present for each other and the kids. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.